Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Well, just get set up here. As Reverend Bonnie said, I try to keep everything new and think of it in different ways. The theme for this month is simple but not easy, back to basics. And I was thinking of some things that are simple but not necessarily easy. And the first one that came to mind is how to live forever. Do you guys know how to live forever? No? No? Would you like to hear?
Sure.
It's very simple. What you do is you wake up every morning. It's simple. Not necessarily easy. Another thing that came to mind, this is called a sermon on ethics and love. And very briefly, the character in this is called Mal, and he worships the Greek goddess of discord, the goddess Eris. It says, one day Mal asked the messenger spirit to approach the goddess and request her presence for some desperate advice. Shortly afterwards, the radio came on by itself, and an ethereal female voice said, yes? Oh, Eris, queen of chaos, daughter of discord, oh, exquisite lady, I beseech you to lift a heavy burden from my heart. What bothers you, Mal? You don't sound well. I am filled with fear and tormented with terrible visions of pain. Everywhere people are hurting one another. The planet is rampant with injustices. Whole societies plunder groups of their own people. Children perish while brothers war. Oh, woe. Well, what's the matter with that if it's what you want to do? But nobody wants it. Everybody hates it. Oh, well, then stop. Simple. Hasn't proven to be easy. As Reverend Bonnie said, during the month of January, we look at the first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind textbook. And the first chapter is called The Thing Itself. And I know some people are taken aback by that word, that wording, the thing itself. I always found it, first time I read it, I thought, well, that's great, because it doesn't carry any baggage the way some of the other words that we will use do, like words like God or love or law or spirit. More or less any capitalized abstract noun that Ernest Holmes will have in the book is another way of expressing our thoughts about the thing itself. But these words all have some emotional valence, some meaning that when you just say the thing itself, you're sort of just neutrally looking at the thing itself. And I said to Reverend Bonnie a couple of weeks ago, and probably said to other people in the past, you know, you can probably look at just about any paragraph in any one of these 4 chapters and put them in another one of the chapters and it would fit just fine. And I think that there's actually, rather than saying, well, it may mean that it's a little disorganized, it may be a lesson there. Because Ernest Holmes says about the thing itself elsewhere, it's an undivided and indivisible unitary whole. It has no parts. So when we break it up into chapters, the thing itself and what it does and how to use it and how it works, those are all distinctions that we make in language, but there is actually no distinction in reality between the thing itself and what it does, between what it is and how to use it or how it works. And so I think that the fact that these things are interspersed throughout all the chapters is actually a lesson in itself about its oneness, its unity. So here are some things that Ernest Holmes says about simplicity. And all the quotes that I take from Ernest Holmes will be only from those 4 chapters. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to guess which chapter, which quote was from. He says, the simplest way to state the proposition is to say that we have a conscious mind that operates within a subjective field which is creative. He says, the farmer has seen the heavenly host in his fields. The child has frolicked with him at play. The mother has clasped him to her breast, and the fond lover has seen him in the eyes of his beloved. We look too far away for reality. He says, we have made a riddle out of simplicity. Therefore, we have not read the sermons written in stones, nor interpreted the light of love running through life. That phrase, sermons written in stones, Dr. Holmes, is actually taken from one of Shakespeare's plays, As You Like It. In that play, there's a duke who's been exiled from his dukedom, his duchy, wherever dukes are. And he's in the forest with some of his friends. And he says that having lived in the forest, he has learned to see tongues in trees, books in running brooks, sermons in stones, and good in all things. And if that's not Ernest Holmes, I don't know what is. Holmes says, there is no occult trick in giving scientific treatments. It is just the reverse. Simplicity should mark our every effort, and positivity should accompany all statements that we make into the law of God. They say the title of the theme is simple but not easy, but if you read what he said, he's not saying it's not easy. He's saying it's simple. We look for reality too far away. He's saying it's simple, it ought to be easy. And I'm wondering if that phrase, simple but not easy, is a belief that we've installed in ourselves that makes it kind of difficult. The other half of the theme is back to basics. And I think that that's a good thing to do, especially in January, but all year round, because there are some things that have gotten away from the basics. There are some books out there that are what I would call not new thought, but new thought adjacent, that have sort of wandered away, not just expanded on the work of Ernest Holmes, which certainly he would have appreciated, but have sort of gotten a little too far astray. And so the title of this talk is What It Does and What It Doesn't Do. It doesn't do magic. I've seen some books that have said, well, you know, Ernest Holmes talks about the importance of belief and the importance of desire in forming those beliefs. And other people have said, you know, if you believed strongly enough, oh, Randy, if you believed strongly enough, you could walk through a wall. So let's test that out. I believe I can walk through that wall and ascend into the sound room. I believe it, and I believe it completely. I have complete conviction. But I believe it. Let me try again. Hello? Made it. What was the difference? See, the universe did provide everything I needed to go into the sound room. Belief and intention, but also a door and stairs. These are the things that the universe provides when we are awake and notice them. Otherwise, we end up just walking into a wall. It doesn't do magic. Here are some things that Ernest Holmes says. But the great love of the universe must be, you missed it, Randy, must be one with the great law of its own being. And we approach love through the law. We must understand both. We are dealing with law and not with whimsical fancy. The road to freedom lies not through mysteries or occult performances, but through the intelligent use of nature's forces and laws. And nature's laws say you don't walk through solid objects. You can't walk through, that's why we put walls up, so that people won't walk through them. The law of mind is a natural law in the spiritual world. He says that we must go the way of the law is a fundamental tenet of this science, because nature obeys us as we first obey it. And our obedience to it is our acceptance of it. Again, in some of these books, I have seen a book that says if you believed strongly enough, you could fly. And this being religious science, I will tell you that the experiment has been done. If you remember back in the 1950s, there was a television series, The Adventures of Superman, you know, faster than the speeding bullet and so on. During that time frame, some merchandisers put out Superman costumes for parents to buy for their children. These little boys, 4, 5, 6 years old, would wear the costumes, and they would believe that if they wore the Superman costume, they could fly like Superman. And so they would jump out of windows and jump off of roofs, believing totally that they could fly. Turns out they couldn't. They needed more than belief. In this case, they would need wings. If you remember Dumbo, you know, the crows gave him the magic feather and said, with this magic feather, you can fly. And so he had the belief, but he also had wings. I mean, they looked like ears, but they functioned as wings. And that's what you needed as well. Here's Ernest Holmes again. We should approach the study of this science rationally, never expecting to derive any benefits from it that its principle does not contain. He says, we cannot fight the universe. It refuses to be budged from its course. We can only go with it. It does not do magic. Another thing it doesn't do I win, you lose. There was something I read, and I apologize, I do not remember which book it's from, or even which author. It could have been Emmett Fox, or Joel Goldsmith, or Ernest Holmes, and I couldn't look through all my books to recall which one it was, but what the author does is he tells a story about how someone approached him who was going to have a pending lawsuit. And he wanted the author, and I'll say it was Holmes just for concreteness, he wanted Holmes to do a treatment to win the lawsuit. And Holmes said, I can't do that. I can't do that kind of a treatment. I can do a treatment so that all will be satisfied with the outcome of that lawsuit. And so he did that treatment, and a few days later, the lawsuit was dropped. It does not do I win, you lose. You remember a couple of weeks ago when Reverend Bonnie was up here, she talked about how after a meal she was paying the check, and there was someone there who had a cap and a shirt that was somewhat offensive, and that maybe got her riled up a bit, maybe even wanted to be confrontational, and she said she wanted to draw a line in the sand. And let's do a little demonstration here. So, anybody who wants to fight, just step across that line.
All right, put me under this.
Okay, so now we're both on the same side. Is there anybody else? You get the point.
Can I sit down
You
now?
can sit down now, yes. Little demonstration that I don't know how many of you know the poem Outwitted. It goes, he drew a circle that kept me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle and took him in. You see, the line that this teaching is actually daring us to cross is going from a consciousness of separation and discord to one of harmony and unity. And I think it's expressed very, very well in this book by Thomas Troward, The Creative Process in the Individual. Now, Troward is talking about the same kinds of things that Ernest Holmes is. In this case, he's expressing it as a process of sequence of causes and effects. And he says this, now, the first thing to observe is that if we can succeed at finding out such a sequence of cause and effect as the one we are in search of, somebody else may find out the same creative secret. And then, by the hypothesis of the case, we should both be armed with an infallible power. And if we wanted to employ this power against each other, we should be landed in the impasse of a conflict between two powers, each of which was irresistible. Consequently, it follows that the first principle of this power must be harmony. It cannot be antagonizing itself from different centers. Here's what Ernest Holmes says about it again in these first 4 chapters. The universe never plays favorites. It reacts to us according to our belief in it, and it is an immutable law, subject to the use of the least amongst us. No respecter of persons. The universe is impersonal. It gives alike to all. It is no respecter of persons. It values each alike. Its nature is to impart, ours to receive. And he says, the universe is not divided against itself. It does not do I win, you lose. It only does win-win. Another thing it doesn't do vague. It doesn't do ambiguous. It doesn't do passive. Ernest Holmes says, the one who wishes to demonstrate some particular good must become conscious of this particular good if he wishes to experience it. Therefore, he must make his mind receptive to it, and he must do this consciously. There is no hocus pocus in mental treatment. It is always definite, conscious, concrete, and explicit. We are dealing with intelligence and should deal with it intelligently. A treatment is an active thing. When one gives a treatment, he is not sitting around hoping that something may happen. He is definitely, constructively, actively stating, sensing, knowing some specific good. Not highest good, some specific good. There's no such thing. You cannot demonstrate this thing that we call highest good. This is, again, a distinction in words. How would you know what it looks like? Here's Ernest Holmes. This is in accord with the principle which we seek to demonstrate. If we give treatments without a definite motive in mind, the most we can accomplish will be to promote a salutary atmosphere, a pleasant atmosphere. A passive meditation will never produce an active demonstration. It says, definite molds or concepts decide the shape which is to be created from the general liquid. If we wish a certain good, we must instill into our minds a realization of this specific good. He says it stands to reason that if thought and faith, prayer, hope, and appreciation are anything at all, they are definite. And if they are definite, they must be specific. To look for highest good is like to go into a gardening store and say, give me the best seeds you have. Well, what did you want to grow? You know, just give me the best, whatever is best for me. Those are the seeds that I want. Well, if you came in there wanting to grow tomatoes, you got to ask for tomato seeds. You can't just ask for the best ones in the store. You know, they'll give you anything and say, yeah, that was it. Ernest Holmes says a practitioner uses thought definitely and for specific purposes. And the more definitely he uses the law, the more directly will it respond to him. When Reverend Bunny was here at the beginning of the month, she asked about when you got gifts for the holidays, did you get what you wanted? Did you know what you wanted? And did you ask for it specifically? She also said something else along that line that I found very interesting. She said that if this person gives me this, it means X. It means they love me. It means that they'll be there for me. And I was thinking that reminded me of an exercise from Course in Miracles, where you look around the room at the objects in the room and you say, this only has the meaning that I give it. This only has the meaning that I assign to it. The human mind has this amazing power to create and assign meanings. If Uncle George gives me a dictionary, does it mean that he thinks I'm very intelligent and would need it to study things? Or does it mean that he thinks I'm stupid and don't know how to use words? It means what I say it means. The same is true not just of objects, but of events in our lives. If I had an argument 15 years ago with Aunt Hilda, did it mean that we don't like each other? Or does it mean that we value each other's opinions and want to be on the same track? It means what we want it to mean. the meanings that we assign to the objects that we have, to the events in our lives, and even to our behaviors. If I do this, does it mean that I'm smart? Does it mean that I'm stupid? If I do that, does it mean that I'm virtuous? Does it mean that I'm weak? It means what I say it means. And I think that the power to change the meanings that we assign to things is as powerful as the ability to change our beliefs. And I think that that's one way for the science of mind to, something for the science of mind to explore, this power of meaning alongside the power of belief. So, what it does. Well, it's sort of been implicit in all the things I've been saying. What the thing itself does is responds definitely to definite thoughts within the parameters defined by the laws of nature. Here's Ernest Holmes. It has been proved that by thinking correctly and by a conscious mental use of the law of mind, we can cause it to do definite things for us, through us. By conscious thinking, we give conscious direction to it, and it, consciously or unconsciously, responds to our advance along the line of our conscious or subjective direction. Now, in these first 4 chapters, he's not going to give a lot of examples of what it does. He's saying what it does as a rule. You look out into his other books, you look at essentially the treatments that he gives. And these will be examples of what it does. So what it does health, it does happiness, it does a home, it does the right job, it does peace of mind. These are the things it does. It does the things on this prayer list request. That's what it does. It doesn't do magic. It doesn't do I win, you lose. It doesn't do something so vague and amorphous that you don't know what it is. Here's what it does. It does physical and mental health. It does relationships. It does prosperity. It does the right work and the right job and the right career. It does clarity. It does wisdom. It does guidance. It does peace. Those are the things that it does. Gosh, I hope all that's enough. Is it? So it is.